I choked when he declared, "I will never let a woman run our family firm. This is final. The firm goes to your brother." My stomach plunged. My hands trembled. Every hour of my life had been spent getting ready for this moment. Internships, sleepless nights, sacrifices no one noticed. He didn't care. He never had. I left that day with only my bar exam notes and a heartbeat that roared I would never forgive him. A year later, I sat in a cafe and watched him across the street, sipping coffee outside his office. He didn't see me, not yet, at least. I had learned patience the hard way, how to wear rage like armor, how to let it shape you instead of devouring you. I remember when I first believed in him. I was 15. He straightened my tie in the mirror and told me I had the brain to argue with kings. I took him at his word. I followed him every summer, took notes, memorized courtroom cadence, learned how much weight a signature carries. I loved him for the promise of his approval that never came. That love had turned sharp and metallic in my mouth. The betrayal didn't explode all at once. It seeped in through small things first, curt looks, offhand remarks, the way he lingered over my brother's successes while skimming past mine. I blamed myself. Maybe I hadn't been enough. Then I found the email chain, unsigned, hidden, undeniable. He had already begun shifting client contracts to my brother, sabotaging every pitch I made. The evidence was clinical and precise. My chest tightened. Heartbreak arrived wearing spreadsheets, signatures, strategies he'd manipulated behind my back. I didn't break. Not then, not ever. I plotted slowly, each step intentional. That night I returned home and sketched a map of his empire, its weak points, liabilities, the financial oversights his arrogance refused to notice. I turned my bar notes into blueprints for revenge. I made quiet calls. I linked dots that were never meant to meet. I waited. Piece by piece I undermined him where he'd least expect it. I built a rival practice in secrecy, luring clients he considered untouchable. I learned every loophole in his contracts, every missed regulatory crease, every mismanaged trust fund. My brother, unaware, became collateral inside the architecture of my plan. I didn't call, warn, or gloat. I watched, unseen, as the foundation he trusted began to crack. The day I walked into his office, I carried only my composure and a folder full of his failures. He regarded me with the same condescension as before. "You're early," he smirked. I returned a small, sharp smile. "I thought I'd come collect what's mine." He laughed. He always laughed before reality arrived. I placed the dossier on his desk, numbers, contracts, client statements, every piece demonstrating how his negligence, arrogance, and sexism had hollowed out his empire. I saw his eyes widen, the smirk disappear, control slipping into panic. "This is impossible," he stammered. "How?" I said nothing. I leaned back and let silence erode him. Methodically, I laid out how each client he believed safe had already moved to my firm, how his mismanaged funds were frozen pending inquiry, how every deal he depended on had unraveled in the time I'd spent preparing. His legacy crumbled in real time, a careful architect undone by his own flaws. Then he understood, fully. The realization hit like a hammer. I wasn't furious, I was exact. I wasn't swept by emotion, I was inevitable. And I had won. I left that office the way I had left before, carrying nothing but myself and the knowledge that I'd dismantled him without a single reckless act. But this time I carried everything: power, control, justice, and the kind of satisfaction that comes when betrayal cuts deep enough to fuel brilliance. Outside, the city continued on. Nobody noticed the fall of a titan. I didn't need them to. I had survived his world of favoritism, prejudice, and deceit. I had rewritten the rules he insisted I could never grasp. For the first time, I tasted the liberation of being untouchable, untamed, unstoppable. He had taught me everything about law, strategy, and power, and I used it all against him. I smiled quietly. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply walked away.